It is time for another mystery envelope challenge with the Inspiration Collaboration Design Team. And today's envelope comes from Dawn. She says, "Hello friends, this month's mystery envelope focuses on shapes. Incorporate shapes or lots of shapes into your project. Enclosed, you will find a few samples, but feel free to use what you have in your stash: circles, rectangles, squares, any shape you have on hand. You may also use dies or cricket shapes. I can't wait to see what you create." So we have lots of shapes, and then she also included the Toadstool Gardens DSP. These are 6x6 papers, and they are front and back. So these are super fun, and I actually got this collection as well, so I might bring in some of my paper too to extend these patterns, but we'll see once we get creating how far I can stretch that. And then she also gave us some of these gems. So pretty. I love the texture of these. They actually have like the texture, they're lifted a little bit. So pretty. So this is a super fun challenge. I can already picture like having this as the base of an embellishment cluster, and then maybe having some mushrooms peeking up or something, since that is like the focal of these DSPs is the mushrooms. You could definitely use the other patterns though and veer away from the mushrooms. So definitely options. So you could go this route and have no mushrooms on your page. But I do like mushrooms. They're super cute and I love these patterns. So I think I'm probably going to bring in some mushrooms. I have the terrific Toadstool stamps that kind of coordinated with this paper. So I might even stamp out some mushrooms, and those could be my embellishments to kind of go along with this layout. I don't have any photos in mind for this layout. So I am just going to create a layout and I'll add my photos later. I am going to make this a double page layout, and I really wasn't sure what route I wanted to go with this layout, but my friend Cindy Jackson actually released a sketch for her team, and I am under her umbrella, so I am going to kind of use that as inspiration, but I don't have the same measurements of paper that she used for hers, so I am going to be putting a twist on this. So I do want to give her credit that I am kind of using hers as inspiration, but I'm not going off of the same measurements that she has for her sketch. I am going to be tweaking it and making it my own. So let's go ahead and see what we have here and what we can start creating. I am going to start on some white willow just as a nice clean background, and I have a lot of bright colors and pattern papers that I'm wanting to bring in, so this will just keep it nice and tidy looking. So this was a 6-inch piece, and I just cut 2 inches and 1 inch, so that equals the 6. And then she actually had one piece over here going 8 inches, but since my biggest piece is 6, I'm going to cut this one down so it's not completely centered at 6 inches. We'll have this one come over a little bit, maybe 4 inches. So then it doesn't look like we centered this, this center piece of paper. So I'm just going to cut this down to 4. And this one down to 4. And then these can be used for a card or something. And we're gonna do something like that. Now, Cindy did round her edges, and I love that idea. I don't round my edges very often. I love the look of it. I love how fun it is, and it's just something a little different. So I am going to round just those 4 corners. This one got a little off. And this one. Okay. And you won't see, you know, any of the other corners. I cut this one to 1.5, and then these are 1/2 inch strips, and these don't line up perfectly. It must have been just under 6 inches. It must not have been a full 6-inch piece, but this is kind of what I'm thinking. And then I could add photos over the tops of these. In Cindy's example, she had a lot of 4x6s kind of laid out like this. So I am going to do that. And then she had a 4x4 over here. And she kind of had it layered. We'll see how that ends up looking. And then she had a couple 3x3s, but I'm thinking I want another 3x4 or a 3x4. So I'm thinking something like that. And she actually has some layers on top of each other, but I kind of think I might want to do something like this. And then that hides where my papers don't line up. So I'm thinking something along this line. I'm going to start by inking around all of my edges, and I'm going to bring in some charcoal just because I do have quite a bit of gray, and then I have this darker gray stripe in here. So I'm going to ink around all of my edges, and I might cut some white pieces to go inside of these just so I can see what it'll look like without so much red, because right now it looks like a lot of red, but once I print my pictures and have that white frame going around, it won't look so bold. I've inked around everything and I started laying it down. So I have these two pieces there, and I am going to lay these down. This is where the Versamat comes in handy. These aren't available anymore, they're from Close to My Heart, but the glass mat from Stampin' Up would be a good alternative. Oh no. Okay, there we go. We'll just have to hide where I tore right there. And then remember, we're not gonna see these seams. So then over on this side, what I find easiest is starting over here. So I'm going up 1 3/4, 1 3/4, and then line it up with that one. And then these can rest on top of that. And then this one we need to, since I want it to go all the way across, I'm going to like that. And then that'll be hidden by a photo mat. Another way to get that same look with 6x6 papers could be to do a frame style. So if you have like an inch or a 1/2 inch frame going all the way around, that would have made it so that these could butt up to each other. So keep that in mind too. If you're using smaller papers than the sketch is calling for, maybe try gutting your, or framing your layout instead of, you know, following exact. But this one is working out to use 6x6 papers, so very exciting. I also inked around my photo mats. We're gonna do the vertical, and I'm just going to line that up with the top of this one, or the bottom of that pattern. And then the horizontal is going to line up with that, and I'm just going to leave a little gap in between. And then that 3x4 is going to hide all of this. Okay. And then same with this side. We're just gonna line that up here. Have a little gap there. And then the 4x4, which I did cut these a little larger, so this one's actually 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, so that I can add a white frame, and that hides all of that. And then I have my 3x3. So this layout holds a ton of photos, but you can also add more by doing 2 horizontals here, 2 verticals here. So you could have, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8 photos in these large spots rather than 4. Does that make sense? And now that I'm kind of creating and looking at this, I might want to bring in some splatters or something in these white spots. I'm not quite sure. I may also want to remove this photo and maybe do an embellishment here instead, because she kind of has it layered. I might hold off on that, and I might do a circle here and maybe a circle over in this area, or I could do my title there too. She shows the title on this side. I could also put the title up here. Another thing I didn't think about is that if we wanted this to look like one continuous piece, it works on this side because of where my photo mat is, but really this piece should be behind here and over to here as well. I'm bringing in those shapes. I cut this one out of the pattern paper that Dawn had sent, and then this she had sent. So I'm not going to put adhesive all the way to the edges, and this is gonna overlap right here, so then my pictures can still slide under. And then this one I'm going to tuck under these 2 photos like that. Maybe a little less. Let's do right there. Okay, and this I cut out with my Spotlight on Nature dies. And then I want to bring a little more pink up into this area. So she has an embellishment cluster here, over here, so I'm kind of bringing it down a little bit. And then she has her title up here. I do prefer my title being on the left, so I might do it up here. Maybe I should rotate these 2. The nice thing about the tape runner is that it's not permanent right away, so you can kind of rip it back up if you have second thoughts like I do. But this might actually fit better here. Let's see, and then have this one over here. Let's do that. I like that, but I don't know how I feel about this one yet. I have a couple stamps I wanted to bring in. So I had already shown you the terrific Toadstools. I'm definitely going to be bringing that in. And then these are Secret Garden dies, and these are part of the Last Chance, so I'll have these linked below if they're still available. But these leaves I thought would be perfect to bring out some of the leaves in here. So we could do like the stem. We might even bring in a few of the flowers. And then in this pattern paper, there's some daisies, almost coneflower looking flowers. And so I thought maybe I could bring in the coneflower, but I'm not quite sure how that would look. So maybe it'll look good with those, but yeah, we might mix some of these in too. And I could even use some of these leaves. They look good. I think those would match good too. So, oh, and there's a daisy on here right there. So we might bring in some of these flowers as well. I kind of started laying these around, but I cut out a bunch of the mushrooms and the sprigs from that same stamp. I just fussy cut all these. I don't have the coordinating dies or anything. And then I'm thinking having the grass here and then some mushrooms up top. And I had mentioned maybe bringing in these Secret Garden leaves, but I really liked the size of these with these little daisies or whatever these are. So now I'm not sure that I'll bring in those bigger leaves. So I'm just going to start with what I have here. Recently, I created a video about not having time to scrapbook anymore. And if you missed that video, I'll have it at the end of this one. But by starting with a sketch, it really takes the guesswork out of it, and you can really focus on getting your pictures documented and your embellishing, and it just kind of takes all the thinking and, yeah, like I said, guesswork out of your layout. So I really appreciate Cindy for creating this sketch for me to jump off of, and I really made it my own. I didn't look at her measurements. I just kind of went for it. I looked at her sketch and saw what papers I had. And that's something I recommend doing when you are short on time and you want to get your memories documented, is find some sketches, whether that's here on YouTube or if you're on Pinterest looking at sketches. It's a great starting point. And then another thing I like to do is create all of my embellishments at once. So after I picked out my stamp sets for this layout, I just turned on a podcast, called my sister, do what you want to do. And I just created a whole bunch of these in the colors that matched the pattern papers. And now when I go to embellish, I have everything ready and I can just start layering. And I like using my Barely art glue to adhere these little leaves and whatnot down. And then I'm also using some Stampin Dimensionals from Stampin' Up. So I'll have those linked below as well in the description box. I am really liking these rounded corners, and it's giving me some more ideas for future layouts. I want to round my corners more often. I also really like this arched shape that Dawn had given us right here where I'm layering these leaves. I don't have that die cut, but that would be something super easy to create on the Cricut, or you could even freehand it. I used Dawn's oval up here to brace this embellishment. I did add her sparkles. I added 3 to this larger cluster, and then I added 2 and 1. I don't have any of these in my stash, so I needed to use them sparingly, so I just did 2 in this cluster, but it still kind of creates that visual triangle that I like. And then I want to add something here since it's kind of open, and then maybe up here as well. So I have this Love This Moment, and if this is still available, I'll have it linked, but it was in the last chance. And there's all these little love this moment, this picture, memories, highlights, the story. So we could definitely add a few of these in these 2 areas. So I'm thinking this moment and maybe memories, or never forget. We could do like never forget this moment. And then I was wondering what I wanted as a title, and I'm thinking my title up in this area. And I have this smile. I could do just a nice simple title, smile, up there. Or I could bring smile over to this area. Now, Cindy did have her title on this side, and I was thinking, having my title on this side. We could do smile down here and just have the 3 clusters. We wouldn't even need to have a title up there. Smile could be my title down there. So then maybe we could do never forget this moment. And then if I wanted to do another little word in here, I could. That might be too much though. Plus I don't think it'll show up very good on that pattern paper. I could do it down here in black. Memories. I don't know that it does anything for it, so maybe not, but I could add those 2. So I'm thinking smile I want to do on some cardstock, and I have a piece of scrap cardstock from when I cut all of these out. So I can stamp that on here and then fussy cut it so that it has the white border. And then these 2 just stamp directly onto my page. Let's take a closer look at those clusters. I really love this arch. I'll try to have that link down in the description box. and I used some foam tape on some of the embellishments. When I first read to use shapes on a layout, I had originally thought of using them as the background on the scrapbook page. I'll have a video linked below where I used hexagons in that way. But here I just used them to hold down my embellishment clusters. The playlist for the Inspiration Collaboration Design Team will pop up on the screen here. Just click on that to see how the others used shapes. And until next time, live a life worth scrapping. Bye guys.